listener production.
Hey, Chris Spear with you. Welcome to The Briefing. Now, we're no strangers to talking about life on Mars, but what about life on the moon? Well, the world's richest man is working pretty damn hard to make that our reality.
We are talking about having a lot of this needing to get done by the time the Brisbane Olympics is going on. Think of all the discussions of all the work that are needed for stadiums and everything being built in Brisbane, but you want to do that on the moon.
That deep dive into Elon Musk's plans with the moon and whether he can actually get it done is coming up in the second half of this episode. First, though, let's get into the headlines with Sasha Barbagat. It's Thursday, the 12th of Feb.
I don't believe Susan Lee is in a position to be able to lead the party as it needs to be led.
G'day, Chris. And yes, that was Angus Taylor, who has ended weeks of intense speculation, opening the door to a leadership challenge on Susan Lee resigning from the shadow cabinet last night. Speaking in Canberra shortly after quitting, the now ex-shadow defence minister says the current situation of the party is unsustainable.
What we need right now is strong leadership, clear direction, and a courageous focus on our values.
So what happens next? Well, Taylor's resignation is the first step in launching a spill, with a number of other frontbenchers tipped to quit today, which will in turn pressure Lee to call a Liberal Party room meeting. That could happen either today or tomorrow, but Friday is looking the most likely, so both can have enough time to lock in their supporters. Lee, who won the Liberal leadership 9 months ago following the 2025 federal election, is moderately aligned and only narrowly beat the Conservative Taylor at the time, 29 votes to 25.
Yes, and as we have been covering quite extensively on the briefing, Lee has been facing pressure since the first coalition split 8 months ago, with dire polling and a second split prompting calls from some corners of the party for her to go. But there are some who are pretty worried at how it will look for the Libs if they do depose Lee.
To effectively knife the Liberal Party's first female leader in under a year is simply, in my view, unacceptable.
That was Shadow Attorney General Andrew Wallace speaking to Sky's Shari Markson there. Now, we can expect to see a flurry of activity today in the halls of Parliament House in Canberra as both camps try to get the numbers. As always, we will be here to break it all down when we do get the result. But Chris, some Liberals are apparently dubbing this the Taco spill. Taco, an acronym for Taylor always chickens out, because he didn't actually formally call for a spill in his press conference. What he has done, though, is leave the door open for what is the traditional convention, I suppose. He could have forced his hand, but he didn't. What he will be hoping will happen is that two MPs will write to Susan Lee requesting a ballot in the party room, and that she will then grant that. And it'd be pretty unusual for her to not do that. I do want to also bring up something that he did last night. Now, he put up a video explaining his position and why he'd done it. He posted it to X and Instagram, but he deleted it. And that's because it was suddenly flooded with comments. And I'll read it exactly as people were writing it. Fantastic, great move, well done, Angus. Now, this is in relation to a faux pas of his back in 2019 in which he put up a video basically spruiking something he'd done as the member for Hume.
Yeah.
I think it was like a car park at a train station or something. And he commented on it himself saying, fantastic, great move, well done, Angus. Because obviously, we can infer from that he was maybe using accounts to comment on his own things. Already he's put his foot in it. But we can expect to see potentially a new Liberal leader within the next 2 days.
To Melbourne now, where police are on high alert as Isaac Herzog's controversial visit to Australia nears its end. The Israeli president will be closely guarded by officers today who were yesterday granted special stop and search powers ahead of his packed day of meetings with senior politicians and community leaders.
Now, he was expected to visit the site of one of Australia's most infamous anti-Semitic attacks, the Adass Israel Synagogue, which was firebombed back in December 2024. He was due to be there this morning, but has reportedly been forced to cancel that visit amid safety concerns. And while his movements continue to be kept somewhat under wraps, we do know he will be attending a large Jewish community event in the afternoon at an undisclosed location, and that is what will be his final engagement in Australia before he flies home to Israel. We can expect more protests today. Around 5,000 are expected to gather in the CBD in Melbourne to protest his visit. Police are saying their extended powers most likely won't be used at that rally, given the powers only extend to places Herzog is visiting. And look, there was more talk yesterday in Canberra of Anthony Albanese's invitation to Herzog to visit Australia, given how contentious it has been. And he actually talked about, this is an opportunity for us to ask further questions of how Israel has been carrying out its attacks in Gaza and the airstrike that killed Australian aid worker Zomi Franken.
Yeah.
So, saying, we wouldn't be able to do that if we hadn't invited him. An interesting position from Albo on that one. But yes, the highly contentious visit is due to wrap up this afternoon.
Aussie millionaire Dick Smith reckons the super rich should be paying more tax and those that disagree are motivated by greed. It's been revealed the businessman was one of just 3 wealthy Australians who have signed an open letter of 400 millionaires and billionaires calling on governments around the world to increase taxes.
Yeah, the letter was written to coincide with the Davos Economic Forum. Graham Marr, who works in the tech sector, and Richard Barnes, who's an anaesthetist, were the other 2 Aussies who put their names to this letter. Now, all 3 have flagged changes to the tax system, especially around capital gains, wealth and inheritance taxes, would help deliver better outcomes for the average person in this country while barely really having an impact on those who are super wealthy.
Yeah, and if you're wondering about a headcount here, we know there are 48 Australian billionaires. That's up 8 since 2020. On average, they increase their wealth by almost $600,000 a day, Sasha Barbacat. $600,000 a day.
I don't think I'll ever see that much money in one go.
Oh, no, me neither.
Well, I won't. What am I saying? I don't think.
Perhaps the lotto.
Well, yeah.
Scratchy.
I'd have to enter the lotto to win it.
Me too.
It's interesting. The ABS hasn't measured the inequality of wealth in Australia since 2020. And then, so 6 years ago, it found the wealthiest 20% of the population owned 62% of total household wealth. It's so grim.
It's so grim.
I mean, but, we've got heroes like Dick Smith saying, tax us a little bit more. So, thanks, Dick.
Thanks, Dick. Speaking of heroes, the 000 call that 13-year-old hero Austin Appelbee made after swimming 4 Ks in rough seas to save his family has been released by police.
I think they're kilometres out in sea. I think we need a helicopter to go find them. I'm sitting on the beach right now and I have to also explain, I think I need an ambulance because I think I have hypothermia.
Listen to him coordinating emergency services. I love that boy. Now, look, Austin made international headlines earlier this month after he made that superhuman swim to get help for his mum and younger siblings who were swept out to sea while paddleboarding and kayaking on the southwest coast of WA on January the 30th.
We couldn't get back to shore and Mum told me to go back to get help. I don't know what their condition is right now and I'm really scared.
Oh, my gosh. He would have been so terrified. But the way he's speaking, very composed.
Oh, yeah, put together. Very put together.
Very, very impressed. Once Austin was on shore, he ran 2 kilometres before grabbing a phone and calling for help.
I'm sitting on the beach right now and I have to also explain, I think I need an ambulance because I think I have hypothermia. I'm extremely tired. I think I have heat stroke and I feel like I'm about to pass out.
The chopper did find Austin's mum and younger brother and sister and they were brought back safely, thank goodness. One of those real feel-good stories to come out of something that could have ended much, much more badly, really.
To the Winter Olympics, very briefly, where one of our best hopes for a medal at the Games has failed to score a podium finish.
Wow.
Jakara Anthony crashing out of the women's moguls super final to end up in 8th place. She was the defending champ, having won gold in the same event 4 years ago.
Australian teammate Charlotte Wilson, though, finished 6th in what was her Olympic debut, so potentially one to watch for future Winter Games. And there is still hope in the men's event. Anthony's fellow flag bearer Matt Graham is competing for a medal tonight.
Oh, this next story brings me so much joy, mostly because we get to play music like this. Britney Spears, ladies and gentlemen, has become the latest singer to sell off the rights to her music catalogue. Yes, according to reports, she has sold that catalogue to publisher Primary Wave for around 280 million Australian dollars, although details of the deal have not been made public at this stage. With this move, though, Britney joins a growing list of artists who are offloading their catalogues, including Justin Bieber, Bruce Springsteen and Shakira.
Yeah, so what is actually to gain from this? There are a few things, including wanting to reduce the administrative burden of managing a catalogue, as well as simplifying taxes and avoiding the unpredictability of the streaming market. But the biggest reason is they get an immediate and very big payout.
It's Britney, bitch.
Which is seen as a guarantee of financial security. It is becoming more and more popular with older artists who want the cold hard cash rather than the ongoing trickle that comes with royalty payouts. So that's the money that they earn each time their song is played. There are a couple of downsides, though. They have less control over how their songs are licensed. Obviously, they don't own the rights to it anymore. And also the potential for brand misalignment. So, you know, it getting played in an ad for a product that they might not like or, you know, maybe Donald Trump might use it.
Yeah, true.
They might not be happy.
Well, I mean, when it comes to Britney, I just don't think she cares. She's someone that is very much scolded by the music industry, at least by her management, her parents, the whole thing with the conservatorship. At the time of her memoir, her book, The Woman in Me by Britney Spears, she vowed that she wouldn't be releasing music ever again. She doesn't want to release music. She doesn't want to be taken advantage of. So, I mean, kudos to you, girl. We haven't really found out all the details yet, but hey, that payout, good on ya. Live out the rest of your days in wealth
and prosperity
and freedom, above all, and freedom, Britney.
All right, thank you so much. All the best, Brit. And now it is time for our deep dive, looking at life on the moon. What could it look like? How's the race heating up? We'll get into that next.
Elon Musk fired off a tweet this week saying his space company was shifting its focus away from Mars and onto the moon.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore.
Now, humans haven't set foot on that big rock since 1972, but the tech billionaire wants a self-growing city there within the next 10 years. And with a bunch of other companies and countries launching lunar projects this year, it's clear the modern-age space race is once again heating up. So, what the hell is a self-growing city? Who are the other big players in the race? And how do inflatable hotels come into the mix? Brad Tucker is an astrophysicist and associate professor from ANU, and he joins me now. Brad, welcome back to the briefing. Let's start with this city that Musk wants on the moon. What exactly is it, and what would it look like?
Yeah, look, it's trying to create, replicate the human process, experience, but yes, on a different object. You know, we talk about building new suburbs, new cities, growth, and housing crisis here in Australia and on Earth. What you're trying to do is essentially create that. And part of this larger goal, and this is not just Elon Musk and SpaceX, but just space in general, is trying to actually create a space economy. So if you think about it right now, everything that goes into space is actually from the Earth, made on the Earth, and then launched up. You want to get to the point where you're actually building and creating in space from stuff in space. Then you're creating your own self-sustaining entity. And so a lot of this is examples like food stores. How do you have enough food and storage of that to create that? How do you have the buildings and equipment to do that on the moon? Now, you're never going to be 100%, especially in technology and electronics, but this is the not that long-term goal that a lot of the groups are trying to get to. Because if you want to do this on Mars, you have to try and get it right on the moon first, because at least the moon is kind of the safe test case. If something were to really, really, really go wrong, you can get back to the Earth in a few days, right? None of that is an option on Mars, right? Once you are there, you're pretty much not getting back, or if you are, it's going to take at least 6 months. So nothing is quick or solvable. So you want to be self-sustaining in the future space enterprises.
Okay, so are we talking like factories, high-rises? Are we talking about all of this sort of stuff?
We're talking about just at least simple infrastructure. We're talking about housing and buildings and that sort of thing. Now, look, I do not think we are going to have space cities with lots of people living in there.
Okay, so not like Star Wars, none of this like flying around between buildings.
Unfortunately not. Not anytime soon, at least. A lot of this right now is for astronauts and research. Now, that can grow and scale, and you can kind of think of it like how we've done and operated in Antarctica, right? There are many bases with hundreds of people literally working there, spending 6 months at a time. That's kind of the future vision and future of the moon, at least in the next couple of decades, but that's still a lot of work, right? So, but we are talking about building materials. How do we actually use lunar surface to create infrastructure? How do we do printing and manufacturing? How do we build in space? And there's a lot of work of this happening. And in fact, in some industries, it may actually be better in space than on Earth, believe it or not, in terms of the peculiar nature of gravity in the environment. So there are some benefits in some cases that we could see of doing this. And that's where we want to head.
Is there anything out there in space at the moment that kind of looks like the infrastructure you're talking about? The only thing that's coming to my mind at the moment is like the International Space Station, but that's floating around.
Exactly. That's the only thing we got. And this is, again, one of these. Maybe that's why there's been the full admittance of pivoting that we're not going to be doing this on Mars soon. We at least need to try this do on Moon. You know, NASA's time frame has always been 2040s for Mars. So the International Space Station's the close. Now, there is what's called the Gateway. This will be the Moon Space Station. This is already being built to get going and be put in orbit around the Moon in the next couple of years, and then slowly build and work towards on the ground. And it's not just the US, China and Russia are working together on these plans as well. So this is that future, and it's going to take time. Again, no different than building suburbs and cities and housing developments here in Australia and Earth. It takes time to build all that infrastructure, but that is what it's going to look like. And it does seem like a big jump, but there's been a lot of that in the background work to start making that stuff happen.
Elon Musk has said that this is a part of, his plan to secure the future of civilization. And the way that you've described it, that does make sense to me. He's put a 10-year timeline on this. From the way you've spoken about it, that doesn't sound all that realistic.
It's ambitious. Yes.
Okay.
Look, I think Elon Musk thinks big, and in some cases that's good. I think in some cases that does stretch reality. We are talking about having a lot of this needing to get done by the time the Brisbane Olympics is going on. Think of all the discussions of all the work that are needed for stadiums and everything being built in Brisbane, but you want to do that on the moon, right? I mean, it is not as straightforward. Yes, it's not quite the same scale, but the principles are the same. So it is going to take time. Now, the benefit also where I think compared to what happened in the 60s and 70s with the U.S. getting to the moon is it isn't just one group. It isn't just NASA. There are many countries working together with NASA, and many companies do this. And what we're starting to see are groups specializing in certain equipment and views. And that's kind of going to be the wave of the future, is a lot of people working on different things, no different than industries here on Earth. But I do think it's going to take more than 10 years to have this grandiose vision.
You mentioned a bunch of industries, and I want to get to one in particular in a moment, but you said Brisbane Olympics, and it got me thinking about the regulation process. No one technically owns the moon, so who's approving all of this and who oversees it?
Yeah, look, this is kind of the gray area. There are space treaties that govern a lot of activity, including something called the Moon and Outer Space Treaty. No one can claim ownership of the moon. And so it's very clear, and that's very good. There's a huge amount of discussion, though, about how do you maintain stuff on the moon. So your equipment is yours. It is recognized. But so for the past, it's only been in the case of scientific exploration. All right, you have a rover, you have a lander, and even if you extract samples, those samples are yours to keep. And everyone's been okay with it, every country and that sort of thing. This is a different scale. And no one's really sure what the answer is. If I extract something from the moon, let's just say I extract water for fuel, or I soil and make it into brick or something like that, who claims ownership of it? And in a lot of ways, both answers are complicated. If I do get to claim ownership, then we still have created a pseudo land grab where I want the best spots and the best resources. If I don't get to claim ownership of it, then do I get to claim ownership of the byproducts of that? That gets into the realm of conflict and even piracy. And then how does your defense of your assets come into play? So it does get quite complicated. And there are a lot of ways the treaties and principles that have governed space were just not envisioned for what people are talking about now.
And interesting, we mentioned earlier competing industries. One of the big ones that's emerging or being discussed a lot at the moment is space tourism. We know that Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin is a big fan of this, Katy Perry being a great poster child of that. But also there's a bunch of private companies as well, like this little startup in San Francisco that wants to build the first inflatable hotel on the moon. Brad, what can you tell me about this hotel?
Talk about moon bounce, right? Look, there are a ton of these companies. And again, this is the different world. There are a lot of these small sector companies. And in fact, NASA has them built into their plan. We were talking about the moon space station. They're very much planning on private companies running private space stations around the Earth that NASA and other groups use. And in fact, the first test parts of these equipment have actually already been launched. This is very much already happening. We were talking about before about using resources. It's a weight game. How can you keep it light getting to the moon? Again, ambitious, but maybe not as dramatically out of the realm of thinking as one may think in terms of what the possibilities may hold. The reality is whatever works the best and is the cheapest is going to come into play. Now, that seems quite simple, but that just like other industries, that's what's going to govern in space. So we really will see a lot of these out there ideas and kind of the business corporate market somewhat self-determine what is the best pathway forward.
Now, Brad, before we let you go, I just want to cast an image or draw an image for our listeners. I dropped out of science. I dropped that in year 10, but I don't understand gravity, oxygen, blah, 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 blah. I know it's a thing. How would humans live on the moon? Let's say this city is built. There's buildings. There's things being made. Do we walk around like Sandy from SpongeBob with little bubbles on our head trying to breathe? What's happening for us?
Well, almost, yes, right? You're going to have to live in bubbles and environments. It gets weirder, right? Everywhere on the moon gets 2 weeks of continuous daylight and then 2 weeks of continuous nighttime. So you'll have periods where you have 2 weeks of daytime and then you could do things like charge solar batteries. It'll be very hot, but then you go into the nighttime or almost the winter and you get that 2 weeks. So you're out of daylight and it's not that warm. Oxygen is going to have to be created somewhere. We were talking about resources. It has to be created some way. People believe that maybe you can extract it from water on the surface. It does seem to be there's a lot of water. Plants, that's another big way. Can we create plants and create enough oxygen to do this? These are the sorts of things when people talk about we're just going to build a city and be there in 10 years, you're not just building that infrastructure. You literally have to have the ingredients for life created. I always like saying it this way. Anyone who thinks it's easy or quick to do this, go move to the Central Australia for 2 years and see how well you do, right? I mean, it's hard, right? We know this. It is hard. It is harsh conditions, dry. The environment is tough on you. These are these kind of practical things that do have to be solved, that the way we operate and live is going to have to look differently, and it's going to be hard. It's not going to be a cakewalk, but we can get there with a lot more work.
Brad, always a good time chatting with you. Thanks for joining us on The Briefing.
Thanks, Chris.
That was astrophysicist and associate professor from ANU, Brad Tucker, speaking with me there. And that is it for this episode of The Briefing. If you enjoyed this chat or you learned something new, why not flick it over to a mate? And while you're there, leave us a rate and a review. I'm Chris Spear. I'll catch you next time.